I used for about 4 years. During that time, I got into a relationship that was very violent. I felt like I was just living to be used and abused. It's kind of the thought that I had at the time because I was even doing it to myself.
My addiction isolated me. I distanced myself from loved ones. I couldn't keep a job and didn't really care to because working would interfere with getting high. Under the surface, I was disgusted with myself, but I presented myself as someone who was confident and unsympathetic to others.
My name is Marissa. I am a certified peer support professional. I have been in recovery for 7 years.
My name is Cassidy, and I am a certified peer support professional at Cummins Behavioral Health. I have been in recovery from meth for almost 7 years.
My childhood started off with childhood abuse for about 10 years, which led to self destructive tendencies at a young age. Started at 14 with self harm.
Looking back, the red flags were everywhere. A family history of addiction, a lack of encouragement and connection in school, and a home environment marked by hardship, abuse, and turmoil. These early experiences laid the groundwork for what was to come.
I was sent to boarding schools, and upon leaving boarding schools, when I got out, I began using substances. I didn't have any sort of self worth and was really good at getting myself into situations or relationships with the wrong sort of people, which led to even harder drug use. At 19, I started using methamphetamine. And shortly after that, I started using intravenously.
My descent into addiction didn't happen all at once. It was gradual. I was first introduced to alcohol when I was around 11 years old by family members who gave it to me as payment for babysitting my younger cousins. At 13, I abused my first pill, given to me by my stepdad as his way of trying to help numb the pain of saying my final goodbye to my great grandfather. At 14, I first tried marijuana at a party that I'd snuck out to with a bunch of adults. At 16, things escalated. I began abusing painkillers and any over the counter pills that could give me a high. At 17, I had my first overdose after ingesting as many pills as I could to attempt dying by suicide. My younger brother heard strange sounds coming from my bedroom, and when he checked on me, he found me having seizures, leading to my being hospitalized for days with no memory of what had happened. I decided to get sober after this event for my brother, if nothing else.
In uh, June, June 2018, I decided to ask for help. And then at the end of June, that partner of mine that was abusive died by suicide. It was at that point that I decided that enough was enough and addiction had taken enough from me. And I stuck around long enough to go to his funeral services. And then I checked myself into a 7-day detox and then into a 28-day program from there.
My newfound sobriety did not last long. After a couple of months, I started drinking heavily and abusing Adderall nearly every day. And by 18, I was introduced to and daily using methamphetamine. The toll was immense. Within just a few months, I was shooting up, and that was the center of my existence. I lived in a state of constant despair, often praying for death as a final end. I shared needles with anyone and didn't care about the risks of HIV or hepatitis. My weight dropped to around 80 pounds. I became a shadow of who I once was.
I was really just broken. I was almost in a sort of state of shock for the first month of my recovery. I had tried halfway houses before, but never an actual 28-day program. So I knew that if I was going to do it and do it right, I would need to get to the root cause. So, not just the violent relationships, but also the childhood abuse, and really just kind of where it started with those core beliefs that I had that were negative about myself.
With the lifestyle I was living, it didn't take long for the crimes I was committing to catch up to me, and incarceration became a frequent fixture. My life felt completely out of control. Then came What I thought was my lowest point, finding out I was pregnant at 20 years old while still struggling with my addiction. That was when I realized something had to change, but I didn't know how. At close to 6 months pregnant, my probation was violated and a warrant was issued. Everyone expected me to run the way I had in the past, but I knew that was not an option and that jail would be the best place for me, so I turned myself in the next day.
In early recovery, I had to focus heavily on what my mindset was. I was so used to thinking negatively about everything that I really had to focus on the power of positive thinking. I wrote it on everything, different handouts in the program, just everything. Following the 28-day program, I was in a halfway house for 6 months. It was the same one that I'd been at twice before and didn't graduate. While there, I did 90 and 90. So I was big into AA and NA at that time.
Spent my third trimester in jail. When I went to court at 8 months pregnant, my attorney informed me that I was going to prison, but thankfully I could have my baby there. I was devastated and could hardly control myself. When it was my turn to stand in front of the judge, he told me that this is my last chance, and only because he didn't want to punish my child for my choices. I had my daughter a few weeks after I was released and fought for sobriety for her. Unfortunately, I didn't get myself away from the world that I'd been living in, and I relapsed for the last time when she was a month and a half old. Within 2 weeks, I was back in jail facing a list of new charges in addition to the ones I had acquired over the couple of years before. In prison, I met people who truly cared for and inspired me. I found support from fellow inmates, from my family, and from a newfound spirituality. It wasn't easy. I had to face deep shame and guilt. I had to learn how to forgive myself and the people who hurt me, but I kept going.
I had to be open minded to learn how to cope with feelings and emotions, especially when it was so easy for me to try to go back to those self destructive tendencies. At one point, I even ended up back into a stress center because I knew I didn't want to use and I knew I didn't want to self harm, but I didn't know what to do. So I had to learn how to ask for help. Another thing that I had to learn is just how to take care of myself in general. And this didn't hit me until after I was in my own apartment, just everything that it takes to take care of yourself as a human being: mental health, physical health, dental health, paying your bills, creating a happy and safe environment that's your own, and how important that is.
Today, my life looks nothing like it did at my lowest. I'm married and raising three beautiful girls. I've learned to keep a small, supportive circle of friends. I found my purpose as a peer support specialist, helping others who are still in the darkness see that there is light to be found. Every day, I'm working to be a better version of myself, not just for me, but for my family and for the people I get to walk alongside in their recovery.
Being in recovery doesn't mean that I haven't struggled with my anxiety. It doesn't mean that I haven't still struggled with depression. It just means that I have found different ways of managing those feelings. I created a supportive environment around me. I have built a little family really close with my mom and some of those relationships that I had lost while in active addiction. I became very goal oriented. I broke down goals by short term, kind of middle term, and long term, and am currently still even working towards my what at one point was my long term goal of completing school, but now I have just a year left of my bachelor's degree. This has given me purpose in what to, keep aiming for.
Staying well doesn't happen by accident. It's a daily choice. I practice self care. I've learned the power of saying no. I surround myself with positivity. I keep growing by listening to others, learning from my mistakes, and pushing myself even when it's hard. I've learned to prioritize myself without guilt because healing starts from within. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: no matter how far gone you feel, you are never too far gone to come back. You are not broken beyond repair. You're worthy of healing, of love, and of a second chance. The road isn't easy, but it's possible, and it's worth it. I am living proof that rock bottom can become the foundation you build a new life on.
I think one of the most important things in my recovery has been having hope that even if you have a life when you're younger where like you don't think you'll amount to anything, if you just have a little hope and you feed it for long enough and you encourage it and let it grow and you act on that hope, you can get to where you want to be.